Hey guys, it's Zach or Zencha here from ZenchaMusic.com, and today I want to talk about mixing because mixing is this like dark art that everybody seems to put up on a pedestal. Everyone thinks mixing is this like incredibly difficult, elitist, sort of extremely technical thing that only people who are expertly trained in it can handle it. And honestly, that's BS to me. There's this sort of like mindset that permeates people who are in the music industry that mixing and mastering is something that requires like years and 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 years of technical expertise. And to an extent, yeah, the best people are going to be the ones who have the years times five of expertise, but you can still mix and master in your bedroom. And for instance, one of the common things I hear is that you need an excellent monitors, excellent room. You gotta pay Bob Hotus like $5 million to come in and make sure everything in your room sounds good, that there's no reverberations coming off the walls, and blah 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 blah, blah. Whatever. I do everything in here. All my all my mixering, all my production, all my mastering. I do in these headphones. And you know why? The most important thing is that you're comfortable with the tools you're using. I'm so familiar with these that I can do everything in them. They're like, I don't need to spend X amount of money on some big ass monitors that have like the correct frequency, whatever. I don't even know the technical stuff because I don't even like pay attention to it. The important thing is that you find tools you're comfortable with. They could be expensive things. That's fine if that's what you like, but they need to be good enough to be considered, I guess, professional in the sense that these, for instance, are studio professional monitoring headphones. They have the frequency response of the complete spectrum. So it's not like I wouldn't suggest mixing in iPhone headphones, although the new ones are pretty good. The older ones, for instance, they don't have any bass response. So mixing in there is like mixing blind. As long as you use something that is good enough, good enough. I can't say that enough. Good enough, then you're good. So mixing is like, I want to use the analogy that mixing is like baking a cake, a delicious cake. And the point is that if you ask somebody, how do I bake a cake? They're going to answer you by saying, well, you get flour, you get water, you get sugar, you put it all together, and you got cake. The problem with that is that it's way too vague because there's a gazillion different kinds of cakes. There's different ways of cooking them. There's different temperatures and everything like that. So when you're making a song, you have to ask what kind of cake. You have to narrow it down further. So what kind of cake are you making? If you're making a hip hop cake, you're gonna need different ingredients than if you're making a country cake. And then within hip hop cakes, there's gonna be like the Nujabes jazz hop cakes, which need different ingredients than the 2 Chainz gangster cakes that need different ingredients as well. So you need to. The concern is that the people are asking the wrong question. The question is not how do I mix music. The question is how do I mix the song I'm currently working on best or most effectively. How do I mix this? How do I make the cake I'm making now best using the tools that I have? And the answer to that question is actually there is no answer. There is no right way to mix something. Mixing is as it's funny because nobody there's such a technical attitude towards mixing, but it's actually really really subjective. Mixing is an art form. You can go balls deep with mixing. Do what you want with it. Be creative with it. Mixing is an entirely subjective art form, and I think that people overlook that when they get to the mixing stage. It's intimidating. We put it up on a pedestal. So when you're getting to mixing, it's important to realize that it's art. It's part of your song. You want it. The answer to how do I mix the song I'm working on is how you want it to sound. That is simply the answer. An interesting thing that I see is most mixing advice still treats the mixing stage as its own entity, separate from the production process. And that's true for rock bands, for live projects when the artist itself is not the producer, that's usually how it is. But nowadays, most electronic producers are are the mixers. They do everything themselves, including the mastering, which is a touchy subject, but I will talk about it in the future. What I'm here to propose now is that the mixing stage is gone. It's part of the production stage. For electronic producers, we have a new stage that I'd like to call the sound design stage, which again is actually a blur, because I will often write some music, like compose something, and then be like, oh, I need a melody or bass line, and then I sound design one, and then put it in the song, and then write more. And then I might even mix it in at that point, and then write more. And I'm sure all you guys do the same thing too. There's no definitive segregation between composition, production, and mixing anymore. And mixing advice needs to acknowledge that. Because things traditionally done during the mixing stage, like EQ, compression, and reverb, are now part of the sound design process, which is part of the blur, I'd like to call the mixing stage now the volume and pan stage. Volume and pan will get you 80% of the way to getting your mix done. Volume will be 60% and pan will be 20%. The other 20% will be going back and fixing sounds that don't work, reassigning voices, changing notes that are conflicting. Mixing is fundamentally really, really basic because most things are done just by adjusting volume. Thanks for watching part 1 of how to mix electronic music. If you know somebody who you think is struggling with how to mix music, finds it to be some very difficult technical thing, needs a fresh perspective on it, please share this video with them. We need to spread the idea that mixing is an art form and that it's subjective and it's not so technical. I think that would help a lot of people actually get out there and finish songs. If you sign up for the newsletter below, you'll receive a free ebook on mixing guidelines and principles that I've written now. These guidelines and principles are constructed to help get you started with the right mindset and the right perspective. I'll see you in part 2.